How could you?" Samuel burst into the kitchen, his face twisted in anger. Evelyn was frying pancakes when her son's furious voice startled her. She turned around in surprise, seeing his eyes burning with rage, his fists clenched. She felt a wave of fear wash over her, but tried to keep her voice calm. "Is something wrong, dear? Why are you shouting at me? You've lied to me my whole life. Now I know the truth. I don't understand what you're talking about." Evelyn tried to maintain her composure, at least on the outside. "Maybe you could explain?" "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what I mean." "Stop speaking in riddles." Evelyn turned off the stove and sat down on a stool. "Tell me what happened." "I met my father." Samuel watched his mother's reaction intently. Evelyn didn't flinch, not even a twitch of the eyebrow. "Your father?" "Yes, my real father." Evelyn instantly understood. Someone had told her son the story of his birth. She had met Aiden when she was 20. A whirlwind romance with flowers, gifts, and grand gestures had swept her off her feet. It seemed like happiness would never end. But everything turned out painfully ordinary. When Aiden found out she was pregnant, he suggested getting rid of the problem. He gave her money and said he wasn't ready and didn't plan to become a father. Evelyn told her parents everything, and they insisted she keep the child. "The baby isn't wanted by Aiden," her mother urged. "But we want him. Don't be afraid. Everything will be fine." So Evelyn listened to her parents. She told Aiden that she wouldn't hold him responsible and would never bother him. He got angry and left, saying, "Do whatever you want. I don't care." She never saw him again. When her son was 2 years old, she met Matthew. They started dating, and eventually, Evelyn told him about her son and how he was born out of wedlock. Matthew responded calmly, saying that a child wasn't an obstacle to their happiness, and soon proposed to her. Once they got married, Matthew adopted Samuel and soon came to love him as his own son. A few years later, they had a daughter together. There were no significant problems in their family. The couple got along well, and the children were happy. Matthew never treated their daughter differently from Samuel, and over time, everyone forgot that somewhere out there, Samuel had another father. Meanwhile, Aiden was living a carefree life, building his business. He eventually became very successful and wealthy. At 35, he married. For several years, he and his wife enjoyed their life together. But then they started thinking about having an heir. And that's when they discovered that his wife had health issues. It took years of treatments, clinics, and even visits to sacred places before she finally got pregnant. Aiden sighed in relief, thinking that at last, at 40, he would have a son or a daughter. But their joy was short-lived. His wife lost the baby after a fall, and doctors were adamant that she could never carry another child. Aiden didn't think twice before divorcing her, leaving her with almost nothing, saying she didn't deserve even that. He lived alone for 2 years, and then remembered that he might have a child in his hometown. He made some inquiries and was thrilled to find out that he didn't just have a child, he had a grown son who had recently graduated with a degree in economics. A ready-made heir. Just like me, Aiden thought proudly as he prepared to return home. It didn't take long to find Samuel. Aiden invited him to a restaurant, noting with satisfaction how much the boy resembled him, and then he told him the truth. His truth. In his version, Evelyn was to blame for everything. After his heartfelt confession about his fatherly suffering, he invited his son to move in with him. "You have a brilliant future ahead of you, Samuel. Or rather, Samuel Aidenson. I can give you everything and more." "Matthewson," Samuel corrected Aiden. "My middle name is Matthewson." "Your mother even took revenge on me with that," Aiden sneered. "But we can fix it. No problem. So, are you in, son?" "I'm not sure," Samuel replied, his mind fixated on one thought. "Lies! They've been lying to me my whole life." "What's there to think about, son?" Aiden radiated confidence. "You've got a chance others can only dream of." "Mom," Samuel said quietly, "what about your mother? Be a man for once. She'll be glad to see you succeed. And you'll be a wealthy man who can support her and her lover." "Her what?" Samuel snapped, feeling offended on behalf of his mother and father. "Well, that guy she's with?" Aiden quickly backpedaled, realizing he'd overstepped. For 2 hours, Aiden worked on Samuel, convincing him that his parents had deceived him, betrayed him, acted only in their own interests, and robbed him of his real father, who loved him so much. That's how Samuel ended up flying home to confront his mother. The man you call your real father is nothing more than your biological parent, Samuel, Evelyn said firmly, trying to steady her voice. Matthew is your true father. He raised you, educated you, and loved you as his own. He chose you, Samuel. Do you understand the difference? Yes, Aiden gave you life, but he wanted nothing to do with you. He didn't want to be a father. He was ready to abandon you, and now, after more than 20 years, you're calling him your real father? Of course you'd say that, Samuel retorted with a sneer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He told me you'd react exactly like this, that you'd try to turn me against him, but it's too late. I know the truth now. He wanted to be in my life, but you wouldn't let him. You pushed him away, didn't you? Why didn't you ever tell me? I would have understood. Evelyn took a deep breath, struggling to keep her composure. We didn't want to burden you, Samuel. Your father and I wanted you to have a happy, carefree childhood. We wanted you to grow up without unnecessary worries. And look at you. You were happy, weren't you? You had a good life. Have you ever felt deprived or unloved? No. So why are you so angry? What did I do wrong? Was it wrong to protect your heart from unnecessary pain? And after I grew up, why didn't you tell me then? Evelyn looked away, her eyes filled with regret. By then, Aiden was long gone. He never tried to find you. I heard he left the country. I assumed he had forgotten about us. I didn't see the point in reopening old wounds. How was I supposed to know he'd come back? He must want something from you. He wants me to move in with him, permanently. The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. She gasped, her hand instinctively clutching her chest. At that moment, Matthew walked in from work. Seeing Evelyn pale and distressed, he rushed to her side. The next few moments were a blur of concerned words, the arrival of the doctor, and the eventual trip to the hospital. Later, when Matthew returned home, he found Samuel pacing the living room, his face a mixture of guilt and anger. "What happened between you two?" Matthew asked, his voice unusually calm. "I've never seen your mother in such a state." Samuel hesitated before blurting out everything Aiden had told him. He watched his father's face, waiting for some sign of anger or betrayal, but Matthew remained silent, his jaw clenched, the only sign of his inner turmoil. "And what have you decided?" Matthew finally asked, his voice tight. "I need to figure this out for myself," Samuel replied, his voice wavering. "That's why I think I should move in with him, to get to know him." "With him? Your father?" Matthew's voice was strained with a mix of disbelief and pain. "Yes, with my father," Samuel exploded, his frustration boiling over. "You never even let me meet him." "And you don't believe your mother?" Matthew's calm exterior finally cracked, the hurt showing through. "You think she's lying?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," Samuel shot back. "He says one thing, she says another. What do you say?" Matthew looked at him, the years of fatherhood, the love, the sacrifices, all flashing through his mind. "I've said all I needed to say through my actions, Samuel. I raised you. I was there for you every day. But now you're an adult. You make your own choices. Just remember one thing. I won't let you hurt your mother." "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," Samuel shouted, storming off to his room to pack his things. As he threw clothes into a suitcase, his phone rang. "Are you ready, son?" Aiden's voice crackled through the line. "I'm packing now. I'll be out soon," Samuel replied, his voice cold. "Don't bother with too much. Just bring your documents. We'll get you everything you need when you get here." "Fine," Samuel muttered, hanging up. A few minutes later, he came out of his room, his suitcase in hand. He didn't look at Matthew as he headed for the door. "Have you really thought this through?" Matthew asked quietly, his eyes filled with sorrow. Samuel didn't answer. He walked out, slamming the door behind him. Evelyn returned home nearly a month later. She already knew Samuel had left to live with Aiden, but the sight of his empty room still made her break down in tears. Matthew wrapped his arms around her, trying to comfort her. "It's going to be okay, Evelyn. He's a grown man now. He needs time to figure things out. We just have to wait, together." Meanwhile, Samuel was adjusting to his new life. Gone was the modest room he had grown up in. Now he had an entire floor of Aiden's luxurious house to himself. He was no longer just a recent graduate looking for a job. Aiden had given him a high-ranking position in his company. Instead of taking the bus, Samuel now drove a sleek, expensive car. His wardrobe had also undergone a complete transformation. Aiden insisted that he ditch the jeans and t-shirts in favor of designer suits, and now his closet was filled with them. Money was no longer an issue either. Aiden handed Samuel a credit card with a generous limit and said, "This is for now. In the future, you'll earn your own way. Your job will pay well, but remember, spend wisely. I don't give loans, not even to you. This is a gift, the first and last." At first, Samuel bristled at Aiden's words, but then he realized there was some truth to them. Aiden wasn't obligated to support him fully. It was enough that Samuel lived rent-free in his father's house. As time passed, Samuel settled into his new life. Work was going well. He was making new friends, finding new hobbies. Life was, as they say, good. But beneath the surface, Samuel found himself increasingly missing his old life. He missed the simple, genuine happiness he had felt at home with Evelyn, Matthew, and his little sister. He missed his old friends, the ones who had known him all his life, not these new acquaintances. And as much as he tried to get along with Aiden, there was an undeniable tension between them. Aiden turned out to be a domineering and meticulous man, completely uninterested in the opinions of those around him, including Samuel's. His interactions with Samuel were less about communication and more about issuing commands. Go there, do this, buy that, be quiet. Samuel often felt that Aiden looked right through him with a cold, indifferent gaze, as if he were invisible. And yet, in public, Aiden proudly declared, "This is my son, my pride, my heir." Heir. Before becoming Aiden's heir, Samuel had lived a perfectly content life. His family wasn't wealthy, but they never lacked what they needed. There was no obsession with money in his household, and he never dreamed of owning a yacht or living a lavish lifestyle. He was happy with what he had. At first, the sudden wealth was exciting. But over time, Samuel grew indifferent to it. The riches that had seemed like a blessing began to feel foreign to him. He didn't feel happier. If anything, he felt more like a stranger in this new life. Thoughts of returning home often crossed his mind, but he lacked the courage to act on them. He was ashamed of how he had hurt Matthew and Evelyn. Then, an opportunity arose unexpectedly. One evening, Aiden came home in high spirits. "Samuel, come here. Get the whiskey out. We have something to celebrate." "What's the occasion?" Samuel asked, curious. "You're getting married," Aiden announced with a grin. "Me?" Samuel nearly choked on the lemon wedge he was holding. "Yes, you. My business partner has a daughter, just a bit younger than you. I haven't met her, but that's not important. The important thing is, she's loaded. Daddy's taking care of everything. You have no idea how much she's worth." "But," Samuel started to protest. "No buts, and don't start talking to me about love and all that nonsense. You should be thanking me for securing your future. She's an only child, an heiress. Don't thank me, though. I can see how shocked you are." "If she's so rich," Samuel said suddenly, his voice firm, "why don't you marry her yourself?" Aiden burst out laughing. "I would, but I'm too old for her. She's just right for you. Her father and I have already sealed the deal." "Ridiculous," Samuel muttered under his breath. "There's nothing ridiculous about it." Aiden snapped, his temper flaring. "I've given my word. You will marry her, whether you like it or not." "No, I won't," Samuel said with unexpected resolve. "I didn't give my word to anyone, and I'm not getting married, at least not now." As he spoke, an image of Matthew flashed in his mind. His father had always been unwavering in his decisions, and Samuel realized he had inherited that trait. Looking Aiden straight in the eye, he added, "And one more thing. I'm leaving. I'm going home. My parents are waiting for me. I've had enough of this." Aiden was stunned. "Your parents? You want to go back to that rat hole and live with them again? Fine, go ahead, but don't come crawling back to me. I won't take you back." Samuel smiled, unfazed. He pulled out the hidden pair of jeans and his favorite sweater from the closet, placed Aiden's credit card on the table, and as he walked out the door said, "Don't worry about me." When Samuel reached the entrance of his childhood home, he stood for a long time, as if staring at the glowing windows of their apartment. He tried to imagine what his mother, father, and little sister were doing at that moment. Finally, he gathered his courage, ran up to the 5th floor, and pressed the doorbell. He froze as he heard footsteps approaching from inside. When his mother, Evelyn, opened the door and saw him, she let out a joyful cry. Matthew came to see what was happening, and seeing Samuel, immediately wrapped his arms around his son and wife. "This is how it should be. Matthew whispered, holding them close. They stood there for a long moment, silently embracing, until Samuel's sister burst out of her room, squealing with delight. Hooray! My big brother's back! That's how the story ends, friends. Join the conversation below and express your thoughts on this novel. If you found it captivating, share the link with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story that will make your heart race. Your support inspires us to create more tales. All the best to you. Take care and see you next time.